Here's our agenda. We're going to go through how AI can help with digital storytelling, dialogue creation for podcasts, and using AI for idea generation. We're going to get into looking at this book that was written called Save the Cat, which is it was a book written on how to write a screenplay and how that can inspire some assignments using AI. We're going to look at using AI to create a children's book. And then there's a larger sort of storytelling assignment on creating your own political party that we'll go into. Now, I'm trying to ground these all in practical assignments or practical assessments. These might not be applicable to your class, but I think that the way these are set up could be, no matter what grade level you teach. So bear with me. I just try to ground this in something that is real. That QR code is going to take you to a link that has resources for this session. I've also put that link in the chat, and I'm not sure if you come in late, if you still have access to that link. So I'm just going to throw the link in the chat again, and this will give you the resources for this session and give you access to the assignments I'm creating. Full disclosure, I'm kind of creating real time, so some of these assignments aren't fully sussed out yet, but as I build them, those links will still have what I'm building. All right, so humans have been telling stories for ages. It's part of our DNA. Storytelling has been just part of what it means to be human, from back in the days where people were just carving images on caves, to today where we have all sorts of stories that are bombarding our inboxes, our television screens, our computer screens. So I'm going to ask everybody just a quick question, and you can throw your answer in the chat, or you can, unmute yourself and shout out your answer. So just from your perspective, why tell stories? And I'll read from the chat and as people put them in there. So why do we tell stories?
It helps us understand history.
Understand history? Certainly. To transmit values and beliefs. Thanks, Phil. Stories help students create meaning from their experiences and to understand others. Thanks, Leslie. To connect with others, literacy skills, develop and share creativity. Awesome.
For fun.
Yeah, for fun. Person that tells stories because I'm emotional, so I like to let out my feelings. Sometimes complaining, but I like to tell stories because it helps me, get over it. To explore humanity. Thanks, Phil. So here are some reasons we tell stories. Telling why things happen. Learning right from wrong, understanding our world, letting out our feelings. Sharing cool ideas. Getting others to yes, getting them to agree with us. Remembering who we are, keeping memories alive, putting pieces together and inspiring us to do great things. And Ricardo says we don't make the same mistakes again. Absolutely. So these are some good reasons. I think that stories, the whole goal here is that the ground is in stories are important. And, it's just part of our, part of what we do. So how can AI assist us in digital storytelling and telling our stories? There's a ton of tools out there. We're not going to go into all of them. I wouldn't even be able to, but it's great for content generation. So it can help us generate dialogue, ideas. It can help us generate images. There's AI out there that can create audio. And I hear there's AI that through a prompt can actually create video out of just your prompt. So AI right now is developing in a way that it can create a lot of content that can assist in digital story telling. AI can also assist in research. So giving us relevant information, helping us to have some historical context, research, and then idea generation of stories and characters and settings. And so I'm going to be hitting on a lot of these today, not all of them. I'm not going to go through any audio AI or any video AI. What tools can we use? The tools that we have available to us, at least at our school, we have ChatGPT. I know that that's been the enemy for many teachers, but I use it regularly. I'm a paid-for user. We have Bing Chat, and that's available to all of our faculty. Our students don't have access to that through our school accounts yet. So those are large language models that are going to generate text. And then some other generative AI tools for imagery that we use would be Midjourney, Adobe Firefly, Bing Image Creator, and DALL-E. So the first assignment I want to go through, so we're just going to dive into like, here are some assignments that you can use this for, is creating a podcast using an AI chatbot. I know that podcasting is a form of communication and somewhat of an art form. So there's certain elements of a podcast that are necessary, integrating different music, background music, having a good dialogue. And for our students, oftentimes we want them to do podcasts for content learning. And it's difficult for them to sometimes come up with questions or to actually have a dialogue with someone else. And so in this assignment, they can choose a character, someone from the past, maybe a hypothetical character. They can prepare some questions for that person. For example, it could be George Orwell. It could be, Barack Obama. It could be someone that's well known enough that the AI chatbot might be trained in that person. But they prepare the questions, engage the chatbot, follow some role play rules, which if you click that link, which is in the resources I gave at the beginning, there's some rules listed out there on how to engage the chatbot well and sometimes ethically. Document the dialogue somehow and edit it, write some reflections on it, and then create the presentation of the podcast. And how might one do that? For example, you can create podcasts in programs like Adobe Audition. Canva has a recording program that you can record podcasts in. They can use a Microsoft Teams recording like we're doing today, where they could just have them and their peers run the podcast there, or they could do it on Microsoft Flip. But the idea would be that they would use a chatbot to create the content, to create the actual dialogue between them and whoever they're interviewing. And then the students would role play the person interviewing and the interviewee and create a podcast based upon that. And the skills that you can teach there are, how do you tell a story? Maybe part of the story is going to demand that they pretend that they're on site somewhere and they have to create some noises in the background and integrate that into the podcast. But the point would be that sometimes it's hard for students in getting started and having that dialogue. And so now you could use a podcast in your English class, or you could use it in your biology class, interviewing a famous biologist. And hopefully through that interaction, the students can learn a little bit about the content in addition to creating a story and creating a narrative and learning some of these digital creation tools. Another way that I find it's really great to use AI is just simple idea generation. I have a teacher on campus who told me that he's asking the students to write a personal memoir and that the students often just don't know where to start. And so you could pull up the chatbot and just say, hey, give me 20 questions to ask myself to get me started on my journey to write this story. Let's say you have a bigger thing in mind. You want to write a fantasy novel. You could go to Bing Chat and ask the same thing, like, hey, I would like to write a fantasy novel. Where do I get started? And the AI can do something. There's two images here. The one on the left-hand side, the first one, is just asking some simple questions that could be reflective questions to get the students started on a personal narrative. But the one on the right, Bing Chat not only gives you some questions to ask, but links it to references that are going to lead to websites that will help, that are also there to help guide the student in writing, let's say, a fantasy novel or whatever genre they're looking at. And so this might be already known to a lot of people, but a way to use AI effectively is just to get the ball rolling, to get, ideas generating. Even if you're doing something like a Socratic seminar on a novel, nobody likes to being told what to do, especially students. So students would much prefer to come in and say, hey, have the chatbot come up with questions, as opposed to them being told, here are the questions everybody's going to ask. So it's a way of giving ownership to students over their curriculum that they're doing. Show of hands, digital hands. How many people have heard of Save the Cat, the beat sheet, Save the Cat? No, no one. Um, let's see. In the link that I sent you in this assignment, there's links to that website to keep kind of on track today. I'm not going to pull it up, but there's a website. Save the Cat is actually a book that was written about how to write screenplays. A beat sheet is essentially this idea that it's kind of a method to go through if you're writing a long story, a long narrative. So Phil's heard of it. That's good. I knew you had. I guess you would have had, but every story has these different beats and these different layers to the story. So, like an opening image, a theme, the setup, the catalyst of the story, the debate that happens. Um, I guess the point is if we give the students a framework like Save the Cat to work with, and then we give them access to large language models like ChatGPT, in addition to image generating tools like Adobe Firefly and Midjourney, students can create a pretty dynamic beat sheet that they could use as the final product of an assignment, or they could use to build a larger story. Um, Someone said they joined late to reshare this resource. Let me see. There we go. That should give you that resource. So if you're able to look at that assignment and look at the beat sheet, essentially a Save the Cat beat sheet kind of looks like this. And if you're really into, the way these get framed up, you begin with your opening image and a final image. And one of the cool things to do is see if these students can come up with the opening image and the final image of their story. And oftentimes, really talented directors and producers will have these images somewhat mirror each other, or they'll have similar framing devoted to them. And so getting students to work with generative AI to create some of those images, and then to come up with some of the different elements of the story. While this isn't as in-depth of a beat sheet's going to have different acts, and you'll see in the assignment it's got more to it. But for the sake of a singular slide, here's just kind of the imagining of a beat sheet for like Charlie's Angels, because everybody here loves Charlie's Angels. So, the opening scene, they receive the call from Charlie. They're gonna have this new life on an adventure. One of the catalysts is resolving their personal relationships at home before they go out and have fun and games, being undercover at a mountain resort. But as things tighten up, Charlie calls and they have to get into action, and then they have this final battle with the bad guys. So if you're following Save the Cat, you're going to pick one of these genres. It starts with 10 different genres of a story you can tell. And once you pick that genre, using AI to really kind of catapult the students into kind of generating actual tangible content for each one of those elements um, can be really powerful to get things going, to get things rolling. On a lighter note, let's say you don't want to write a whole let's say you don't want to write a whole novel or narrative. You could do something as simple as tell a story with 5 pictures. For example, let's say it's their own personal story, or in this case, it's Othello. You know, Maybe you're in English studying a story or a narrative, or maybe you're studying a historical figure, or maybe you're doing a personal narrative. But just ask the students to use AI to generate, prompt engineer 5 pictures that could tell that story. They don't have to be their personal pictures, but this is going to teach them a lot about prompt engineering, which has to do with critical thinking and ideation. Very seldomly will they be able to get the results they need to do a good job with simple prompts. They'll have to learn how to do reference images to get the prompts to sync up. All these images here, I had to reference different images to keep the to kind of keep the style the same, to keep the lighting the same, to keep the characters looking similar. So Phil's saying you can train ChatGPT-4 now to repeat characters across different scenes, which was quite difficult before. So I thought I'd figured something out, Phil, and now you're telling me it's quite easy. So that's great. You can also ask it to do pencil style storyboards across cells like David has demonstrated. That's cool. Is that just in the chat bot itself? Or do you have to have a paid for account? Oh, paid for. Great. I'm gonna have one. So is that the DALL-E tab I haven't used yet? And again, a lot of this stuff is moving so rapidly, and it is getting easier to get the results you want. Another assignment that I see used on campus here, this is a teacher at O'Day does this, creating a children's story. And so using AI to come up with a children's story plot and images. And what this teacher does is has the students use AI to create their images. And again, trying to keep those images to have that similar theme, the similar feel, similar characters. And then having the text. And in this case, he's using InDesign to integrate the text and the images. And what I love about this assignment is that he has a grade school that then he ships the students to the grade school and they read their stories to children. So they go through the creation process, publication process, and then they actually get to deliver and perform it in front of the audience that they're targeting, which are children. So that's a really fun assignment to give. And they've done this assignment for a long time pre-AI, and they would only choose only those students that had really great artistic skills would get their books chosen to kind of be shipped off to the students. And now that skill is kind of, I know there's a debate here whether this is great for art or bad for art, but I think for these students creating this one assignment, a lot of students don't have to be fearful that their images aren't going to look good or that they're going to be embarrassed. And so I think that this has been a good thing for this one assignment. Thanks, Phil. I think it is a good workflow. I'm pretty sure, Phil, you coached this teacher. So back at Phil, coaching this teacher. I'm literally just, Phil should be teaching this. But then this last one is rather, you're right, Phil, it was his workflow. This last assignment is one that I've been working on for a while. This is a much more complicated project. It's really targeting an AP Gov course where the students will create their own political party and create their own activity based on that. Create kind of an in-depth political party. I want to pull this assignment up from the resource because it's a little more. Let me share the specific. So this last one is complicated, and I want to share this because I want to show how rich using AI can be. So the assignment essentially is to create your own political party and create your foundation and your branding, to create a voting coalition, to write party platform and policy stances, and then using platforms like Canva, coming up with different sort of infographics that talk about your platforms and your stances. Candidate nominations, in this case, they are nominating well-known figures so that there's something tangible for others to think about to be their candidates. And they have to justify each nomination and give some hypothetical situations and resolutions. I don't want to bore everybody because it's a complex assignment, but each one of these links at the top will take you to a detailed understanding of the assignment, that part of the assignment, right? So what are the requirements? Coming up with a name, color scheme. I give some potential prompts that could help in for ChatGPT or for Midjourney or for Adobe Firefly, coming up with a logo. These are some samples of potential logos that could be used, drafting a mission statement. They have to illustrate their party's branding and create images or visuals of the party in action. So rallies, conventions, you could use AI to do a lot of those. A sample would be, at the beginning here, having your leader, and on stage with the brand in the background. And you can get some really great results with the right prompts. And if you have your color scheme and you keep to your color scheme as you're prompting, you can make these consistent images throughout. A sample, I have samples of the, what would this look like at the end? So my party is the Progressive Prosperity Party. I'm not going to read all this out loud. It's somewhat, it's not serious per se, but it does talk a little bit about the different tensions that you're going to find in politics, and a logo that we came up with, and using a product like Canva, for example, to come up with different videos to introduce your party platform to people, to the students. The candidate nomination and simulation. One of the things you can do, and I know Phil was saying that now it's better to keep those, it's easier to keep the things kind of thematic, but in this case, I tried to write prompts that made these famous people kind of in the style of George Washington's image, his famous painting, the presidential painting. But one of the areas that I think about when I'm doing this is that these are well-known figures, and while I think a lot of this could be seen as satire, we know that Elon Musk was not posing for this image, but where do we hit the point where we're putting people's images without their permission in certain spaces? And so that's an area that I'm not totally comfortable with yet. It's a conversation to be had. I know that when I was young, we would make collages from magazines with famous people's images and things like that. So is this different? Is it the same? So there's some ethical things to look into. But as you explore this assignment, and it's really detailed, and I'm not going to go into it. I'm trying to keep this short and sweet. You can see that this assignment can use all those different features of large language models and textual kind of back and forth with the AI models, in addition to using image generation to create what could be a pretty full project for students and engaging in ways that I think were impossible a year and a half ago. So that's it. That's all I've got for you today. Those are the ideas I was hoping to share, and I'd like to stop sharing and maybe pass it to anybody if they have any topics they'd like to talk about. I know I had a series of questions I could ask, but I'm wondering if there's anything on people's mind that they'd like to bring up. Ricardo, your hand's up. Just go ahead and unmute, talk.
I would say a lot of teachers are faced with and this comes from a few years back when they requested some software that will see if the plagiarism software that will match whether or not it went across the internet, and it checked the internet. And the whole idea was, in terms that some of the teachers were looking, hey, I want you to annotate, I want you to provide all the resources where you got the information, and not just, like you said, critical thinking at this point. Utilize that information that's on the internet and bring it in, and where you found it, and so on and so forth. But use your own creativity. So, and based on that comment, I'm trying to figure out, there is a balance somewhere with this AI and how everybody's looking at it. A lot of teachers have been scared of this, while others have embraced it and say, this is the best things for critical thinking for kids to get. We are all learners. We all trying to get better ways to skin the cat, sort of speak. Sorry, wrong. But that's something that if you want to look into it, there are some copyright issues with when it comes to schools. I work at a school district in Renton, and I managed the print shop, among other things, and we had all of those questions that teachers will come in and say, "Is this a copyright issue? Is this?" And there are some parameters that for schools they are allowed for them to implement. That's all my comments. I just putting a seed in your head. Doesn't have to be for the next meeting, but if you want, I can send you some ideas or something or comments on this, and
Yes,
see what
please.
All right.
I'm just a talking head, so I'd love more information. Phil says, I found that large language models can give quite accurate and incredible critical analysis of creative writing if you feed it students' narrative work. Students can use AI as a critical partner. Thanks, Phil. Yeah. It's a great tool. It's like a great tool to partner with to get your assignments done. Awesome. If everyone is, I see there's some more chat going on.
Well, and David, I was wondering, is there a specific way you teach students to write better prompts? Like, do you go through non-examples, examples? Like, how do you help them see the way they interact with the chat GPT or whatever vehicle they're using? Based on what you say back to it, makes a difference on, of course, what you get out of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, your prompt matters. Something that I've done is we have the turnitin.com, AI detection tool, which is, everyone here's an adult. It's shitty. It's a shitty tool. But if you give the large language model a poor prompt, it 100% will say this is AI generated. So if you say, write me an essay on X. However, if you display that you understand a little bit more about the topic and you guide the AI to grab things. So you can do something as simple as saying, I would like an analysis based upon, X theory, or I would like an analysis, that is in the style of this author or, this academic. And if it has been trained on those academics or those theories, it'll give a much more targeted response that then even becomes more difficult for the Turnitin.com AI detector to pick up. So you go from like 100% AI generated to 20%. I do that in part to show students that the better you write your prompt, the better it's going to generate something that is unique. And also you can, sidestep the AI detection tools, which they're not very good anyways. So yes, that's one way. But when it comes to, there are definitely, there's definitely a way you can write the prompt that's best, right? There's acronyms and stuff for it. I know Phil has taught some acronyms. But I find the best way to teach students about prompt engineering is to just write a lot of prompts, is to just do this a lot and actually care about what it's spitting out. And I think they'll naturally build that skill with giving them some groundwork and some basis on how maybe you start with, here's what I'm looking for, here's a style of what I'm looking for, feed it some information. But yes, there's definitely better prompts and worse prompts. So Phil says, for instance, a history student wanted a way to remember battles of World War II, and the large language model created a great mnemonic to remember the key facts. So it can leverage stories to assist knowledge in memorization. That's really cool, Phil. I love that. I'm going to try to let me thumbs. Nope, going to heart it. Going to heart it. There we go. That's great. I really appreciate everybody coming and attending. If it's okay with you, I'm going to keep your emails and put you on an email thread for the next sessions. They're not all going to be on AI. I think my next one is actually going to be on using Microsoft Teams assignments and their new classwork feature to help teachers in the classroom. So not as thrilling, but definitely useful. So thanks, Phil. Phil, the political party resource should be in one of the links that I provided here. So I think the link to that resource is in that Canva document. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to end the meeting unless anyone has any last thoughts.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Thanks
Good
for
to
the
see you too,
information.
Leslie. All right, thanks. Take care.